we want to reward lads who are on form, and I think he deserves to be in camp and see how he gets on. And I have to agree, I looked at Connacht and Brive, and I thought Mac Hansen was a man with, who was possessed. He was involved in everything that Munster or that Connacht did so well, and it's just another string to his bow.
Joe presents House of Rugby, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.
Hello and welcome back to House of Rugby. And no, your eyes or ears aren't deceiving you. I am not Greg O'Shea. I am indeed Jason Hennessy. Unfortunately, Greg is away this week on holidays, but I do have Lindsay Peep beside me.
Yeah, well, we're a duo now.
We're a duo
Greg,
now.
sorry you're missing out.
How are you? Good.
I'm good, how are you?
Grand.
I'd say a happy man now after that weekend.
I did. I was in Tone Park, so it was a good match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We also have a very special guest here today, Mr. Brian Moylett. How are you keeping?
Cheers. Yeah, keeping really well, thanks.
Excellent. Welcome to the show anyway. We'll get straight into it. We'll get straight into the match because there's loads of rugby to look back on. Obviously, we're going to chat to you later on about your book, How to Become a Rugby Player. We're going to chat about the mental side of the game, that extra 1% that players will be looking for. And but obviously, straight into rugby first.
Yes.
First off, where I'm going to start off first. There's only one place to start off.
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We can all predict this.
Biased at the highest level.
So
we might go into your psyche whip, Brian, about being a Munster fan.
Look, when we call the shots out here, look, Pat has already decided we're going to start with Munster. I'm not going to say I was in his ear, but we are going to go ahead with Munster first.
I think there was maybe this to his head. Let's start
Munster. But anyway, Munster won in Thomond Park, 27-23. Bit of a strange one, considering the fact that they were 24-0 up at one stage. But obviously, there was a red card in the first half to Jack O'Donoghue. But no bonus point, but a win at home against Northampton.
And a guaranteed qualification. Now we're just
I think they're almost. I think there's basically so.
Yes.
Did you watch the game?
I did watch the game. Look, I'm telling you, Munster are winning me over. I'm always going to be a Leinster fan, but obviously I gave out about for a long time. Not give out about I suppose, no more than yourselves, echoing the frustration about where you have brought in big names, whether that's be players or coaches, and kind of, moved away from the natural DNA. And I think we're now starting to see, like Jack O'Donoghue, fair play, he's on a run now, he's confident. I hope this red card doesn't kind of hinder that, because I thought he was exceptional. Gavin Coombs, stand up, my friend, because you answered your critics. And I think he looked fit, he looked hungry. He not only now did this big, ball carry where he's a big man. Now we start to see his ball playing skills as number 8. Craig Casey, lovely to see Calvin Nash back in. We're going to talk about the 10-12 axis with Joey Carberry and Jack Crowley. I thought works again, because I think both players aren't under pressure, so they're both ball players and kind of working off each other. So yeah,
definitely. Brian, what you make of the game? I mean, definitely, as I said, a game of two halves.
Yeah, I thought Munster, they started well, but Northampton, that first half, just weren't at the races or did nothing. So it's hard to tell. Like Munster, they started really well. Then the red card is difficult because, down 14. But yeah, some really good stuff. Like you said, Lindsay, I thought Gavin Coombs was class. And definitely with the Six Nations around the corner, he's playing well, and Crowley, class as well. And so, yeah, there's some good things happening there at Munster. But I still think they definitely have levels to go. Like they can be a lot better. While they're improving, I don't think they're anywhere near the finished article, and they can definitely get a lot better, which is good if you're a Munster fan as well, or a Munster player.
Do you know what I do like, though, that we're seeing that we didn't have before? So say, obviously, Roman Salanoa started, which was kind of maybe surprising in a way, because your tie head is so key to that, your set piece. But John Ryan comes on, so now you've depth. He gets 2 turnovers. He kind of brings in 11.
At the end of the bloody month, though.
Well, listen,
that's the only thing.
A different kettle of fish.
With my pal Archer to come back in, haven't we?
Yeah. I thought Salanoa did well.
He did very well. He did very well.
Yeah, and around the park he was good. And
even Scannell's little tip back inside, for that first, was it, who scored that one? Into Tyke Byrne. So it just they're not run of the mill now. They're trying something different. And Graham Roundtree said that a couple of weeks ago. We're trying to implement a process. We're trying to play. Of course, it's going to take time, but to see depth. And I think, listen, you're the trained man here, but I think going down to 14 men and grinding out a win surely is going to help that towards the finished article. So you're not only having a style of play, you're now mentally getting confidence and getting over these stumbling blocks in big European competition.
Yeah, 100%. And something on that, what I thought was interesting is the likes of Kendall and Hodnick coming in and taking off O'Mahony, and Carberry was taken off as well. And then Crowley was the man to finish the game. So these younger guys, it looks like Roundtree is trying to push them through, which is needed, I think. And like that, finishing out a big European game when they could easily have lost at the end. But it's these young guys that are, getting them over the line. Whereas there's been a lot of talk in the last number of years about where's the next group of Munster players, or, are they coming through? And so, it was a big win for them.
Yeah.
Just on those young guys, before we move on and look at the rest of the game, big decision before the game, and the squad was announced, to drop Conor Murray and Keith Earls out of the squad. Conor Murray is fit and ready for selection, and he dropped him. And I mean, Paddy Patterson has been playing well, so he's going. He's going by form. And I'd love to have Greg in here this week to see what his thoughts are. But Craig Casey played well, had a great game, and Paddy Patterson. So he is looking to the future, and kind of, I think it's a message to the whole squad, isn't it? That, I mean, Conor Murray is Conor Murray. Like, 3 times line tourist, 100 caps for Ireland, fit and ready to go, and he's dropped from the squad completely. So it's an interesting one, isn't it?
It's interesting, but I like it that it's kind of a bit comes back to Gavin Coombs. I assume he's alluding to like Tyke Byrne gets always played a match, so you're kind of doing it on not anything but a profile, and he deserves at times, like he's actually been a leader, but like you can't stand on past performances or your name. Like you have to bring something. Now I can't I'm not going to take anything away from the two lads. They're absolutely so highly decorated, world class players. But right now, do we know any more about them? Should they maybe get that time to just reignite that fire? And you always have to be improving, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like if you're not working towards something, your strengths every
only as
day.
Good as your last game.
Exactly. So I think right now we know so much about the lads, and it's time to take a chance. And we said this, and Graham Roundtree is he's rewarding. It's going to build a lot of good culture within that squad, and I think the momentum and experience they'll get. But what do you think?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Like the two of them are Munster legends in Ireland as well, and they've proven it in the past. But the guys that come in, like Craig Casey, has been playing really well. Calvin Nash and Shane Daly on the wings were very, very good. And so like those guys do deserve a chance. And if you are dropped, you're going to have that fire in the belly to get back in there. So Graham Roundtree, you have to mix it up a bit. You have to rotate the squad. You have to give lads chances, and guys that are in form, you got to let them play. Just if someone has X amount of Ireland caps, it doesn't mean they have to be guaranteed a place.
No.
And one thing on that though, I think watching the game, I think Craig Casey was playing the way Conor Murray would have been told to play with Munster. So I saw him kicking so much in their own half, like Carby and Casey, kick, box kicking, just. I'd love to see Craig Casey just playing on the front foot, what he's good at. Versus Munster, from the outside looking in, it looks like they practice a lot of box kicks out of their own half, which Conor Murray has done for years. Yeah. And Craig Casey's gone in, that's what he's doing. But that's not his game. So I would love to see him just getting on the front foot, playing on the front foot. And, people are talking about the new Munster attack or whatever. As I said, I think they've levels to go, which is good. But Craig Casey, get him playing on the front foot.
Yeah. Brian, I liked you before that, but I love you even more.
Well, I think as well, you're making a great point there, because if you look at Ireland and their attack at the moment, Jamison Gibson Park has been given that freedom by Andy Farrell. Yeah. Now, sometimes it doesn't quite work out for him, or sometimes you're like, okay, you probably should have kicked it there. And he does, and he makes mistakes. Yeah. But 9 times out of 10, it works out for us. And you're like, if you don't try, you ain't going to get anything out of it. And if you keep trying the same thing, and he's so much different. And Ireland's attack now under Gibson Park is phenomenal.
Is phenomenal. I think Craig Casey is, and we've had this chat before, in my opinion, I'd much prefer him both if I was playing with him and as a spectator, as a fan, because I think it's so hard to play. And when you're, yourselves from playing, if a ball's gone in a ruck and you're trying to get back on side to get in your defensive line, it is exhausting. It's mentally, you're like, oh Jesus lads, when are we going to get a break here? So I think he's exceptional. The only thing is, I suppose, is now game management. I think obviously the Carby got turned over trying to play out of his 22.
Yes.
So now we don't actually make mistakes in our red zone where you can get turned over, but make mistakes within your orange and your green zone where it's not as detrimental to the score or possession, or obviously Gloucester got a score or Northampton got a score off that. So, but I think it's brilliant, and I'm glad you said it, because it's time to exit, but don't deviate from why you're in there, Craig Casey. Play. And it's lovely.
You want to go back to that kind of robotic kind of a play either, and back to kick the ball in the air, Van Grand kind of a thing, and lump up with your forwards. But that's not what we want to go back to. But someone as well I wanted to mention before we move on from the Munster game is Mike Haley, another phenomenal performance. A guy I probably should have mentioned last week, and chatting to a lot of people during the week, kind of thinking he's a guy that I think should be in contention for the Ireland squad, because he's in the form of his life at the moment, isn't he, Brian?
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's playing very well. He's really good at carrying the ball when it is kicked deep. Like a lot of rugby these days, lots of kicks. So he's good at carrying that ball back. When you mentioned the Ireland squad as well, I think, like we were chatting before, and Mac Hansen is another guy who's incredible. And him at fullback the last day for Connacht, I think he's just going to be the Connacht fullback from now on. Like,
do you think so?
He was class.
Yeah.
And he's done it for Ireland already. Like he's in the Ireland squad.
Oh yeah, he's there no matter what, yeah.
So he now is Mike Haley for sure is playing really well, but I think Mac Hansen is, he could well be that.
What do you think, Lindsay? Is it just me being too Munstery? Like, I mean, or do you think there's a genuine case there for it?
No, I think we discuss players that even should get into squad and see how they go. Do you know that?
He's only got one cap. He played against Italy. Was it just before the last World Cup? That's only he hasn't really been given a chance.
No, and I think he's, we want to reward lads who are on form, and I think he deserves to be in camp and see how he gets on. And I have to agree, I looked at Connacht and Brive, and I thought Mac Hansen was a man with, who was possessed. He was involved in everything that Munster or that Connacht did so well, and it's just another string to his bow, really. And I know he kind of, in media the last couple of weeks, said his form has dipped and he needed something. Well, boy, you've brought it back, I tell you.
To factor in as well, that's Brive in the Challenge Cup, like a different kettle of fish if he's playing full back against Wales or England or France or Scotland or even Italy. Yeah,
because there was one try Brive scored now, and John Porch bit in, and actually Hansen was ahead of Porch, so I was like, right, as your full back, and obviously I'm a forward, but I was like, surely a position, and now where were you? Because you should have come into the line outside Porch if he was coming in, or come inside Porch and fill the line. So
I'd be afraid of that, because I didn't see much of that game at all. I haven't seen much of Mac at full back, obviously, because he hasn't played much there. But like, I'd be worried. Like, I don't want to go down the route of someone like Jordan Larmour, who's a brilliant player, but he's not a great full back because you just can't trust him defensively. But whereas he's a world class winger, and so is Mac at international level. Whereas I think someone like Mike Haley would be like Hugo Keenan. Hugo Keenan isn't the flashiest full back in attack, but he's just safe as houses, and his positioning, his defensive reads, his under the high ball, whereas I think Mike Haley could fill that role if anything happens. I think, look, don't get me wrong, I think Keenan is miles ahead of Mike Haley, but I think behind Mike Keenan, I think Mike Haley's the best specialist fullback in the country at the moment.
100%.
And he's a guy that if anything does ever happen to Keenan, please God, it doesn't, but you've got someone in there, whereas I don't know if you could. Look, I still have to see more of Mac, but I wouldn't be relying on, like, before we put someone like Jordan Larmour in there, and I just don't think he can cut it at test levels of full back, whereas I think Mike could.
No, and the thing about Jordan Larmour, and we might towards the end of the show and talk about Six Nations, but he's back to his best at wing, but he's still, I don't think, up to the level if we have everyone fit.
Yes.
And I wouldn't put him in full back. And I probably wouldn't put Mac in full back right now, but I think it's another string to his bow, and it's confidence with Connacht. And
it's not a bad option.
No, it's not a bad option.
With that back three, as many options as possible. I mean, for a long time we relied on the same kind of back three for a long time. Now we don't know who goes where, like, which is great. And with James Lowe gone away now at the moment, like, he's gone back to New Zealand.
That's sad.
We don't know what it is yet. Well, hopefully everything's okay back home. But if he's out for the Six Nations now, like, because New Zealand isn't exactly around the corner, like, it's a long way to get back, and we'll see how that goes. But moving on, obviously we could talk about Munster all day, and I know Pat will just get out to me if I talk about Munster all day, but I could if you want. We can do a full show on Munster. But moving on to, probably not the best of games. I remember watching this game myself, the La Rochelle and Ulster 7-3. Did you watch it, Lindsay?
No, it's probably one of the few games I didn't. I kept an eye.
You didn't miss much.
No, lads, if you saw the house, the men's was in the front room, the women's was on the telly, and I'm going in between. There's children falling off couches.
I can give you 5-second highlights anyway. Doak kicked a penalty in the 68th minute, and then La Rochelle. I mean, I feel so bad for it. So it was 81 minutes when they got their try. Not the best of affairs, but I think that's Ulster pretty much gone now, unfortunately, is it?
I think unless they get a home bonus point win, is it?
Win next week, they have a chance of qualifying. But
other results is not.
It's out of their hands.
It's out of their hands, yeah.
Okay,
but if they win, they have a chance. I think, Clermont have a tough game. So if they win, Clermont are away in South Africa. So if Clermont lose, Ulster win, maybe with a bonus point, they're in there. But difficult for Ulster. Like, I thought they did so much well in that game.
Yeah. They were away from home as well. Remember that as well, against the champions.
Against the champions, they had a good few entries into the 22. They were very unlucky in the first half because La Rochelle gave away a yellow card. Ulster were driving mauls at the line, gave away more penalties. I thought they should have had a penalty try in the first half.
That was Nick Timoney, wasn't it? And then they did try disallowed, no?
2 tries disallowed, didn't they? They did one from Timoney, and then the Rob Little try as well, like so.
Yeah, so I thought they were lucky not to get a penalty try, score in the first half, and they did so much well. I thought Ian Henderson was incredible.
He's back. He's in fairness, in the last few weeks, he's back, and we people forgot because he hasn't been in and about the Ireland squad because he's been injured. And
he's had an awful run.
Do you know what I mean? Get him back. He's going to be back in. I think he could be fighting to be starting in the Six Nations again. I don't know. You're probably going to have Ty Byrne and James Ryan there, but Ian Henderson, it's Ian Henderson at the end of the day, Well,
this is the thing. And then you're if you're talking about the background, you're starting McCombs. You could see Ian Henderson come in for that leadership role in the second row if O'Mahony's the one to maybe, say, for example, make way, and you kind of have Doris, Coombs, Van der Fleur. You know what I mean? Is that the way you're going to go? So it's lovely to have options, but then
so many options now. A fit and ready Henderson back again. So Henderson can play sixer in the second row. Same with Byrne, and you've got the likes of Bard can play there as well. So it's nice that we have the utility forwards that can kind of go. He can go six or second row. And that's huge. England did that for years with the likes of Courtney Laws and do it with Itoje and stuff. And especially when how many players can you bring? Is they upped it now from 31 players to 35 or 33? Is it for the World Cup?
33,
But still, that's not a huge squad. When you go into a World Cup, 32 players isn't a lot. And I know they've extended the World Cup now and they've made it, it's been played out over extra weeks so that you have to have a minimum 6 days rest now. 6 days, Pat, isn't it? At least five. So between 5 and 6 days rest. But you kind of need players in a Henderson and stuff who's a utility forward. You need a utility back in there as well as there's no such thing as being a specialist player anymore. You have to be able to play at least 3 positions.
Minimum 2 positions on your CV, sorry.
Yeah. So that's kind of thing that'll factor him in, and that's why you bring players like that in.
Well, it's very hard to list the 33. I did it during the Autumn Nations for something else, and I was I actually couldn't. And I was picking utility players, kind of that thing. Who would you have on the bench, on the high bench, that can come in and cover a number of positions if you have injuries and have that experience. So it's actually good luck.
Big players are going to miss out. Because that's the level of competition that we have in the country at the moment. It's a good complaint, really, isn't it?
100%, yeah.
But hopefully Ulster can get a result, because it'd be a pity to see them, because they started the season so well, didn't they? They really have faltered the last few weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, they've fallen away quite a bit. They got that win in Connacht, which I was disappointed with. I was at the game myself as a Connacht fan, but Connacht let that one slip. But Ulster have fallen away. But as I said, that last game in La Rochelle, they really showed a lot of heart, a lot of fight, and they did so much so well. So it'd be great to see them get into a last 16 and
Sale won't be easy. I know Sale, they lost by, it was a bonus point loss against Toulouse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they got, is it 2 red cards they had in that game, wasn't it? Or no, they lost both their props. One of their props went off injured, another prop then got red carded. So that didn't reflect the game. So Sale are flying pretty high in the Premiership. And
Sale are looking to win that to get into the last 16
yeah,
themselves. So it's not a gimme for Ulster.
No, not at all. It's going to be a tough game no matter what for Ulster.
I'm thinking, does this reignite their season, or do they kind of bow out and kind of then finish off, maybe even make Champions Cup, maybe a good run with that, and then concentrate in the URC?
They're still in with a chance for to win the URC, because they're only 4th now, so they're still with a chance to get into the playoffs and win the URC. So do they put all their eggs into one basket and focus back on the URC, or? But then again, they're going to give it hell for leather this weekend, and hope to God that results go their way. But it'd be nice to see the 3 Irish teams get through. No matter what. I know one of them is already there. We're going to move on to your lovely Leinster. They're just mutants. What was I reading there? How many tries have they scored in the first 3 games?
Oh no, 7 in the last time.
I think they've got something like, I don't know. I think they'd 8. I think there's something like 30 tries scored or something. So another 7 tries yesterday away from home. In the shed in Kingsholm. Gloucester, they're a good side. That's a tough place to go. They didn't have a crappy side out like that. They had a strong side out. All their big boys were playing. But Leinster still, and they did 2 yellow cards in the game, Pat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And 2 penalty tries.
And there's 2 penalty tries, and they're still running 7 tries to win 49-14.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
Well, I tell you, I was intrigued with the Harris Ringrose battle. That was great. Obviously, Harris Lyons, so much experience, and Gloucester was a lot different animal than they were obviously when they came to Dublin. Their line speed was exceptional. Leinster they were sublime. Their line out try with Doris putting Lammer through, Alatoa with the kind of again reverse back off a quick tap. So I just think, and then Kelleher comes on and scores another try after getting 2 in Dublin against Gloucester. They just are a team, a well-oiled machine. I thought Jamie Osborne was absolutely exceptional. His running lines even for the Jordan Lammer try. When someone's running at you, I have him, and then you're like, where's the ball? And
he's only a kid,
21.
Isn't he a kid? But I was watching Brian O'Driscoll and Delalio and Craig Doyle yesterday on the highlight show. Like, I said, he's 6'4", 6'4", and he's a good bit of filling out to do. Like,
yeah,
and he's already strong. And he doesn't even look that big. I mean, he looks like a guy for the future, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. Although there are so many centres in Ireland. But he's a kid, he's 21.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 100% going forward. But, when you think of, if you talk about Ireland squads, and some people saying, like, oh, he could be in the Ireland squad, I think it's far too soon for him. But, yeah, you look at the centre depth chart that's in Ireland now, it's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, for so long we've just had 2.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now it's like 8 or 9.
Yeah. I'm just looking here. Pat said those 22 tries in 3 games. Have Munster even scored 22 tries this season? Have they?
In the last 3 years, maybe.
But another one I think was an interesting. Like Delalio and O'Driscoll were looking at Doris yesterday, and like O'Driscoll said that he thinks Doris is going to be Ireland's most important player over the next couple of years.
Yes, I agree.
He thinks he's going to be our best player at the World Cup, and Delalio looking at it as Delalio, one of the greatest eights to play the game. He's just like, that guy has it all. He said he even sees him as a future captain as well, because he just thinks he has it all. For a guy to be that clever, that big, that strong, soft hands. Is there anything? He has they even said that they reckon, the both of them said that they reckon he's a guy that could be up in the echelons of a Kieran Reid in the next couple of years, or even like, look at some of the top 8s we've seen in the last few years. But that's how high they reckon his ceiling is. There is no ceiling for him. That's how good he can get, and he's already incredible. And
he looks like a guy who's just loving his rugby, and like there's no pressure on him. And that's the thing about Leinster. I think there's such a depth, experience, a cohesion, a culture there that they just are never... Like Jamie Osborne, I watched him against Osprey, thought he had a mare. He came back as a mature, experienced player to bounce back. Doris, he's just exceptional. He's a joy to watch, and obviously as a fellow Mayo man, you'll have a soft spot there from. But I think you're right. I think there is no ceiling for this guy. I think he is going to be like Jamie Heaslip, obviously was forced into retirement, and he was one of our greatest players to have played. And you think for so long no one's going to fill those shoes. And finally, we have someone who's probably not only going to match him, but surpass him.
I think so. I think he has. Is he 24, Pat? Is all Doris is now?
Yeah, probably 24.
24. So I mean, he's got plenty left in him. I mean, could be the best player to come out of Mayo. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. It'd be a tight one. Yeah,
a tight one, huh?
Yeah, no, 100%. He's unreal, and yeah, you see every game he's just such a key player on the ball. He's so good and has it all. Good in the line out as well. Like, both sides of the ball, and yeah, 100% he's going to start for Ireland at 8, and he's a key player.
If you were picking a line team tomorrow, like, he'd be your 8, wouldn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
And you'd have Van der Fleer at 7, like, and maybe Conan at 6 as well.
Be an Irish back row anyway, probably for the bench and for replacements and starting. But he's actually even smart around the breakdown, and I don't know many turnovers he's caused by just actually grabbing the 9's arms, and frustrating them. And he's so smart, decisions he makes, and that's, I think, the calmness that is so central to that pack.
Yeah.
And just another unassuming leader. Like, he doesn't do a lot of chatting. He's very much actions exactly what that needs to do, and does the simple things extremely, extremely well, and gets players into the game. So yeah, he's definitely one of my favourite players, I have to say.
I think the only thing that I'd be worried about is he has that history of concussion. I hope that doesn't come back to haunt him, because he's had a few bangs, he's had to step down a few times. He now wears his protective headgear. You know, that's the thing I would be worried about. I really hope a guy who's 24, who has the ability to go on to be the best 8 in the world. I'm saying that like he does have the ability to go on to be the best 8 in the world. So I just hope that doesn't affect him, because you want to see guys that, like we saw unfortunately what happened with Dan Levy. And I mean, like, how good was Dan Levy going to get? Like, how good was he before he got injured? And we never got to see him. We never got to see that year in 2018 when Dan Levy was like probably our best player in the Six Nations, won a Grand Slam. Like, there was talks him going on to start for the Lions. We just never got to see that. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Doris, and hopefully we see him play for another 10 years or so, if not longer.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Captain of the Lions, that's what I think he could be.
Captain of the Lions.
Yeah. I'm going to throw it out there.
Captain of the Lions.
Heard it here first.
There you go. We'll come back now in a few years. So that'll be your prediction. So Greg's prediction is that Munster are going to go on to win the Heineken Cup this year, and yours is your one's a bit more realistic, I think, to be honest with you.
And you know what? I think to celebrate that and his captaincy, the next Lions tour, we're going to go on a House of Rugby road trip.
That's it. There you go. But there's Papa in a good point there in the script that I think is interesting. Would we be worried about Leinster going into the last 16 and going into the quarterfinals, semi-finals, that once again they still haven't really been tested this year in Europe or the URC?
Throw this to Ryan now.
I feel like over the weekend that Leinster were like in third gear because they knew they could be in third gear.
Yeah.
Like that first half, they ran in the try off the line out, ran in another try, and it just looked like they were just at a training run. And because they didn't need to do any more. Like they could easily have gone up 2 levels. Like they're like the test team. They're like the Irish team essentially. And so you'll see all those players at a completely different level, I know, come Six Nations. So yeah, like Leinster, it's like they're just winning games at a canter, but you know, they know what's coming down the line. The coaches know, everyone knows, like La Rochelle, Toulouse, these big teams. So I don't think it's that they're going to be caught cold and unexpected, like not going to expect what's coming. Like they know what's coming. So,
but it hasn't helped them the last few years. People forget, like we're going on about Leinster every week. Oh my God, they're amazing, they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
They haven't won 9 cups since 2019, lads. They've lost. I know they've been to finals and semi-finals, but the last 3 have been won by different teams. They're losing at the last hurdle because, but yet all of those seasons they didn't win the URC last year, but they won the Pro 4 teams 3 years in a row before that, or 4 years in a row. So they were unbeatable, not beaten. Same in the group stages, they put 50, 60 draws past everyone, but then they're losing. So like they haven't actually won it since 2019. So
yeah, but
you'd be worried.
You would, because someone said actually was it maybe Brother just because like Leinster are the actual best team to do your video analysis on because they
100%.
show you everything, and I think we saw that with Ron Nagaran, and I think I remember saying this on the show. He's the one man I would fear. You're not fearful of the La Rochelle players, but you're fear of the psyche of the coach and how he dismantled Leinster, and that's where you cannot train. You cannot train for that unless the lads and Stuart Lancaster kind of get someone in and review themselves. And I think if you're kind of, you brought it, I watched it on your page, like if someone think about the opposition and what they would not want you to do or what, so they need to look at what opposition see in Leinster and attack them in a train, and that's the only way they're going to get ready, because I think they're never going to be rugby tested if they're allowed play, but what happens, their psyche and their game and their plan B and C, if they're restricted.
They're almost too good for their own good. It sounds
100%.
stupid. It sounds stupid, but they're almost too good for their own good, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I'm not sure, I was chatting to a player in Leinster and they were saying that over COVID, that it was a Crusader, they were working with the Crusaders and they were talking to each other about how they would beat each other.
Oh, very good.
I remember seeing that,
Yeah, and so that is, where it's at for Leinster, and they need to look at, because like you said, O'Gara is going to have a plan, or La Rochelle or Toulouse. Yeah. These teams that are coming down the line, they're going to have a plan, and it's not going to be, they're not going to play the way every other team plays and let Leinster just do what they want to do. And so, they need to look at how are these teams going to come against us? How would we beat us? That's what Leinster will have to be asking themselves. Yeah, big time. And I think looking at the game, one area they'll be disappointed with is their maul defence. Like they gave away 2 penalty tries, and so it was terrible. So that's something, like there is still definitely areas they can get better at.
Yeah, because the maul is a difficult one, because if you decide to go up in the line out, like actually for the second one, like Cian Healy had James Ryan up, and then as a lifter you have to get down and try and smash them all. So he literally, you could see James Ryan absolutely fly the other side of the maul. So now you're down a man and you just need all your weight, and with mauls it's just like, yourselves, it's just like time, and you have to either dismantle it, don't go up, dismantle it, or if you're going to go up you want to disrupt the ball. So I kind of think they were kind of in this grey area where they were challenging, not winning the ball, and then they were down, like they'd definitely 1 man 2 men less on feet to hit, So I think, but it's nice to have something to work towards.
Exactly. Look, another good result for Leinster. We won't get. I can't believe we're giving out about Leinster being too good for their own good. But that's the level we've got to with them. The kind of analysis where you're trying to understand Leinster as they are the best team in the world. Yeah, big time. If you were to pick a team at the moment, I know La Rochelle are the champions, and I know they haven't won it, but like if you were to pick out the best team in the world now, you pick Leinster. Maybe the Crusaders, but I think Leinster, the Crusaders don't have much competition enough to. Do you know what I mean? I know it's warranted. I think you would put Leinster because of the teams they've played and what they've done. But looking at the other notable results in the Champions Cup, Harlequins lost 30-29 to Racing. That was a great game. They had a massive comeback in the second half, but unfortunately couldn't hang on. Marcus Smith. I saw there was an interesting tweet. There was a Pat, you sent that in with Austin Healy calling out Squid Rugby for a charity boxing match because he didn't agree with some of the decisions and some of the tweets they're putting out. So Austin Healy had a bit of a fun weekend. He regularly comments on Rugby Joe on social media, so he's as fiery as he is on television as he is on social media.
You need these people in the world to keep it light-hearted.
I know, yeah, exactly. Big one on Friday. Leicester absolutely smashing Clermont away, putting 40 points past them.
Yeah.
So no one expected that. They needed that because they haven't been great since Bortwick left, so that's a big boost for them. Edinburgh beat Cass away. That's a big result because Cass are a tough side to beat at home, like they always have been.
Yeah.
They don't travel as with Munster. Munster for some reason always get drawn with Cass, and they can never travel, but they're a tough team to play at home, like most French sides. The South African sides absolutely flying it. Sharks have already qualified the last 16 with the Stormers and the Bulls. More than likely to join them, so that's all three of them through. So they're continuing to defy the odds.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw something there this morning. There was a report there in the 42 by Murray Kinsella saying that when we get to the semi-final stages, that they won't be permitted to have home semi-finals if they get through. So that was a deal that they'd already struck with them. They said they'll obviously reassess it if it's two South African teams, but they're allowed to have a home last 16 and a home. But like the way they're going at the moment, there's a good chance that if they qualify, that they will be seeded for a home semi, but they'll have to play it in Europe, which is huge.
Well, it's huge considering how successful they were in the URC, and I know European competition isn't, they're not equal as such to compare, but it would be harsh. But look, to get into the competition and do well, there's going to be teething problems, and if you're good enough to win, you do it away. But when teams are having 40 hours travel, it's not ideal for your preparation, your nutrition, your rest. So look, we'll watch the space, but they're doing well. It was, we had that question mark over them. How would they, embed into the European competition? And as South African teams do, they're definitely making a name for themselves.
Taking away that home, potential home semi, is huge because, look at their record at home in the URC and their record at home in the Champions Cup. It's if they had that home semi, we could have been looking at a South African champion, couldn't we?
Yeah, big time. I wonder the URC, the Champions Cup organisers kind of thinking, geez, we don't want to just an all South African final, so maybe let's throw them off a bit and bring them for the semi-final and bring them up to Europe.
I think they just, framed it that they could just see how they'd compete this year and then reevaluate next year.
But it's good though, as in obviously it's good for I think it's good for the competition itself. Well, look, it depends on whether you're a traditionalist or not. Some people don't like the fact that South Africa are being brought into a European competition because it is still the Heineken European Champions Cup. So some people don't like that, but in terms of a buy-in, if you're the South African franchises and the fans and stuff, to see them doing so well in it and seeing they compete in it, it's just going to put more eyes on the Champions Cup, and it's just going to make the competition even bigger and even more prestigious and make it more difficult to win, which is that not what we want?
100%, yeah. You just want good rugby.
Yeah.
You just want to see good rugby, so bring them in.
Next stop is going to be South Africa in the 6 nations, 7 nations, maybe. Rugby
has been strange in the last 3 years, so let's not rule it out.
Let's not rule it out. Before we move on to the women's Interpros, obviously we have to check in on the Challenge Cup. Connacht, we already discussed it earlier on. Connacht absolutely smashed Brive, 61-5. Obviously Mac Hansen was great. I saw Troy there. I only saw highlights now, and I saw the quick penalty from Carty over to Porch. Oh, what a try. Obviously, you watched that game. What you make of it?
Yeah, I went to the game.
You went to it? Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and like I say, Jack Carty was class. John Porch, Mac Hansen. Yeah, Connacht were playing brilliant rugby.
He got
Alex
a hat-trick.
Wooden, yeah,
he was
100%.
Very, very good.
Really good. Hasn't been playing as much in recent weeks, but really,
he's a great
really
player.
good.
I was very surprised when Munster let him go on the first place. He's a great player.
Yeah. No, he's playing really well, and it's just good to see Connacht back playing the way that they do, playing really good rugby, moving the ball, throwing the ball around, and clocking up a big score. But yeah, that's something that they can really aim at, that Challenge Cup. You know, there's them, the 9th and 10th place teams from the Champions Cup come in to the Challenge Cup. But they can definitely have a crack at winning that. I
think so. I think it'd be a nice. And actually, Josh Murphy and Niall Murray partnership in second row was nice. It's nice to see because Josh Murphy, obviously, when Leinster let him go, he was kind of a good player, but it's nice to see him getting consistency. And Peter Dooley there, as Lou said as well. And it was a nice team. It was it was a really, really exciting, nice performance to watch. I watched it in full, and Connacht. I think anytime we see Connacht and we're kind of reviewing them, they have these sublime performances, really express themselves, but it's the inconsistency we kind of see in them. So if they can kind of get a run in the Challenge Cup, I think they have
a tough one there. I mean, what would they do there? I mean, so they're kind of teetering in around was it 9th or 10th at the moment? So there's a chance of them pushing into the top 8 and getting Champions Cup next year, or do you put all your eggs into the Challenge Cup? I know you can kind of I don't think they have the squad to really attack both competitions.
No.
Would they kind of go, okay, let's have a real go at winning some silverware, or let's kind of just leave it the way it is and try and climb that URC? And what's better? I mean, if you're a Connacht fan, you're going to take a trophy over getting into the Champions Cup next year, aren't you?
100%.
Oh, you want a trophy, yeah.
And players too want to win trophies.
Of course.
Yeah.
Plus, you want to attract new players.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, you've done so well with your signings, but like you want to attract Connacht as not only, the club, but like actually an ambitious club who'll win silverware. And I think it'd be nice for to be honest, they've always been the bridesmaid, never the bride, and I'd love to see them bring home a trophy.
They've done an excellent job as well on the Challenge Cup over the last 2 years of making it not just a secondary competition. It's kind of its own separate entity now, and like the finals weekend, that's also with the factor in as well, it'll be on the Friday, and then the Champions Cup final on Saturday. The Challenge Cup final's on in Dublin this year, so that's a huge advantage if you get there. It's on in Dublin, like, and if you end up with a French team or something, and Connacht are playing in the Aviva, and like that's going to suit them, like, and they're used to playing there. They've played plenty of games there.
Imagine a sellout for Connacht now.
So,
challenge for the trophy.
Leinster, Munster in the final in the Champions Cup. So, and then Connacht, Ulster will drop down into this one and be Connacht and Ulster in the Challenge Cup final. There you go, Pat.
There you go.
Write it down.
I don't want to fight with you and Greg now when we're in the final. The family will be dismantled.
Family dismantled. Anyway, we'll move on quickly before we start the fight. We're back to Munster and Leinster again. I forgot about the Interpros. Finally, Munster actually beat Leinster in a rugby game.
Oh, lads, I'm still not over it. I am still not over it.
The men can't do it, but the women did it, and they did it well. They did it 26-17 at Musgrave Park. I think we kind of called that, like that I said, they were going to have that advantage playing in the 4G and playing down in Cork. But you obviously watched that, did you?
I did, and I was kind of surprised. I was I expected a rip-roaring battle. But if I'm honest with Leinster, I was kind of surprised. I thought their line speed wasn't. Munster's line speed was excellent. I think they targeted the breakdown, which Leinster were kind of slow to. Very narrow around the ruck, but it was a great game. It was a great advertisement, and it was a typical Munster Leinster. Like, we started off so well. Jenny Murphy got us on the scoreboard after like 4 minutes, but then, just Clodagh Halloran, actually a nice opportunist try. There was just someone had left the pillar, and up she picked at the ruck and just got it over the line.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, it was a good try.
And Stephanie Carroll, who I play with Railway, was, as much as it kills me to say, Stephers, it was great to see her back playing in a Munster. She hadn't played the round before. Yeah. She's had a run of injuries, and it was obviously her back playing. She got on the try to seal the win for them. So I thought Nicole Cronin was exceptional. Dorothy Wall for Munster.
Great player.
Alana. There was just some exceptional performances. Clodagh Halloran, Chloe Pearce come off the bench. She's suffering from injury. Obviously, the two lassies then, bigger than rugby, had some great news after the game. So I just thought it was it was a great advertisement for the women's game, and a typical.
It's good to see a high level rugby back playing. It's good to see all these, like you said, there's a lot of people that have been injured or come back in, and we're coming into Six Nations down. I think we're looking like pretty healthy going into Six Nations, aren't we? The way the whole province, all 4 provinces are playing like.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, not only we chat about the 10 jersey for the men's, like Dan O'Brien obviously was up against Nicole Cronin, who Nicole obviously is, usually a 9, has slipped into 10, has played for Ireland at 10. Now Dan is the new up and coming. And then Nicole Fowley, who plays for Connacht, is back to her best and has had 2 cracking games for Connacht over the last 2 rounds, and I think deserves a shout in. So if Greg McWilliams is listening, give Nicole a chance to come in. So it'd be nice. Yeah, Connacht have done well. Brilliant. Now.
We have to mention, you kind of briefly mentioned it, like we'll obviously have to put a picture and stuff when we're doing this in the edit, but Clodagh Halloran, she proposed to her teammate Chloe Pearce after the game, so like that picture went viral everywhere because it's such a class picture to see it after the match in her gear, and she obviously had no idea. Like, I see her face, she's so surprised. That was well hidden, I'd say. It was hidden for a while.
Well hidden, and I must get more information on it, but I have to say this
that's your job for the week, is to find out what went on. Surely the teammates would have known. Surely the rest of the team, she had to told a few of them to try and set it up.
But she had to, because the lads were like gathered around them for after, and then. But lads, I must put up a picture. Fiona Hayes I played with Fiona. She's in the backroom staff. She is absolutely dismantled. Like, she's absolutely sobbing. I welled up. I've obviously played with Chloe. She's an exceptional player. Lads, now you think you and Greg are Munster true and true.
Oh, they're Hardcore.
Clodagh and especially Chloe Pearce is Munster to the core. So the fact that they were both in their Munster jerseys, they're in Musgrave Park.
That's why they did it, like, because it was, I get it.
Kills me. They beat Leinster, and that's all. She got back to me. She's like, yeah, well, beating Leinster was the icing on the cake.
To say, I'd love to know. Just about to say, if they lost with the same things, like, cancel it, get the ring away. We lost. No,
we'll have to wait till next year.
Next year, yeah. But no, it's good. It's nice. I love stories of that. I love to see stuff like that. Like, and especially, I think it's even better now, that little backstory, the fact that they're like hardcore Munster, that makes it brilliant, because that's why that they're in they're, and
I think they'll get
to beat Leinster as well. Like,
yeah, keep rubbing it in there, lads. Right, massage it in.
Anyway, moving on to the other Interpro. Up at Kingspan, Clara Barrett, scored 2 tries for Connacht as they beat Ulster 25-17 to stay in the hunt for the title. Yeah. So that means we've got Munster and what would be kind of a decider next weekend.
So they go to the sports ground.
Does the winner take all the way? Is it work that way, or does it?
Yeah, it should do it. Yeah. Well, Connacht lost to Leinster in the first round, so everyone has one loss except obviously for Munster. So if Munster win, it'll be
win. That's it. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Oh yeah, perfect. Who's in
Munster,
it now?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Prescott. Well, can we have to win something? Like, we don't win the men. The men ain't doing much. Like, so if the women can win and to win something for us, great.
Well, no offense, I can't see Munster with their experience, and they're like, I was very impressed with their performance and how they just grinded it out, and they know their roles well. They've some exceptional players, so I think
it does help as well, the fact that there's so many of them coming from, like, how many of them come from Bows? So they're playing with each other week in, week out, so they have that advantage, whereas when you're normally, you come together as a province, when you're with your clubs, it's different to the men's game. They're not with each other non-stop, they're only coming together at times, so they have that huge distinct advantage of being in basically a week in, week out training together.
And then Niamh, obviously.
Yeah, and the players around. Yeah. Like, it's so helpful just having those combinations and known players. Yeah.
No, it's because Niamh Briggs obviously is in there. Fiona Hayes. Fiona Hayes now is head coach of Ballincollig, so it kind of comes in that, and actually the two dolls would have played together, so they have their philosophy. They're both Munster in their own right, so that just filters down, and so yourselves when you're coming into camp, all that kind of excess foundation work is kind of gone, eliminated. You can just build from the grass up. But I will give Connacht a shout out. They have been impressive over the last 2 rounds, and I'd love to just see a cracking game. I thought they were exceptional. One of their tries was absolutely exceptional. They went from sideline to sideline with Ava Ryder finishing off in the corner, and it was actually just some lovely traditional rugby, and it was a joy to watch. So they got a good win on the road up in Ulster, but Ulster are kind of like mirroring their men's. They're just having a bit of a mare at the moment. Just need to get a bit of confidence.
And I think regardless of who wins next week and who gets the title, it's brilliant to see such competitive games. And like you mentioned Greg McWilliams earlier, like, I'm sure he'd be happy out just like so many players playing well, such good rugby being played, that it all is going to help the national team.
Yeah.
100%. That's what he needs. He needs competition.
That's what you need from these
fighting for places is what you want.
Matches.
Well, they've sat in limbo for a long time, and now they have this Celtic Cup, so it's kind of like now mirroring a little bit of a very mini URC. So we'll go up against some Scottish and Welsh kind of combination club teams, and it'll be nice to see where that fits in and help the progression, because I think no more than getting experience with the men's, you need it. And
yourself, you can train as much as you like, but you cannot replicate match minutes.
No, not test match either.
You can't. No, and you need to get out and play games. You can train all you like, but if you're not out playing games, it's no good to you. And they've got a nice run of games now to get them in before the Six Nations, which is what they need. But good stuff. Some other bits before we move on and have a chat with yourself about your book. The Owen Farrell 6-week ban. I have to talk about that. So his 6-week ban that became a 4-week ban, that became a 3-game ban, right? So he got reduced from 6 down to 4, and then he gets reduced down to 3, right? Listen to this, because he gets to attend a tackle intervention program. Yeah. So the England captain, who's a professional rugby player for how many years, gets 1 game taken off because he gets to go in and learn how to tackle properly. Come on, lads. I mean, what is this all about? Like,
do you think they could do that for the cops with penalty points and cars for us? Like, we go to driving school.
So we get a few points taken off, we go and do our tests again, do we?
Like, when you put it into real life, it's kind of farcical, isn't it?
Yeah, and then the other thing as well is England sent Saracens a letter saying that they would not need them for their game against Bristol, right? Even though he wouldn't be in, even though he wasn't going to play that game, just so he could serve an extra day, so he's available for the first game against Italy.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute disgrace that they are doing it, because everyone understands the problems with concussion and what's happening to players, and like, you have players suffering from depression and just having like a lot of problems because of this later on in life. Yeah. And we all know it's such an issue. Everyone's aware of it. And then something like this happens, and they're clearly saying one thing, we care about concussion, we care about player welfare, but then on the other hand, they're just brushing it under the carpet to get a marquee player to play the game, to play the big game in the Six Nations, and it nearly doesn't matter what they do. So it's like, go shoulder people in the head, and we'll move things around so that you can still play.
Of course.
You know, so I just think it's really bad from, you know, the people at the top.
It looks terrible. I think the worst part about that is that Farrell, when he came into his hearing, Farrell denied that it was a red card. I mean, he said that he didn't think it believed to be a red card. So that's the worst. So this guy is the England captain. So if you're going to be looking, if you're a young kid and you're going to be looking up to any player, it's the England captain. And then looking back on the weekend result, Pat, we might have to clarify this afterwards, but from the games I was watching, there was a red card, 2 red cards in the Irish game. Kieran Parker, former Munster man, came on and got a red card after a minute for another stupid shoulder charge into a ruck. There was another red card in that game. There was a red card in the Sale game. There was a red card in the Munster game. All of them were headshots. So there was 4, I'm not sure, there was at least 4 red cards over the weekend, possibly 5. I think there might be another one, and they were all blatant. They should have been red cards, and a good few yellow cards as well, like the one in the Munster game. So the players don't seem to be learning and still don't be listening, because there's guys getting headshots every bloody week. Well, and this is the highest level. This is Champions Cup. Yeah,
and I think, as I said to you, it's not about a scapegoat, but Owen Farrell is such a highly recognised player as an England captain, as the exceptional athlete he is. You need to make an example that no one is above the law.
Yeah.
And I think obviously, there's this, do we look at it being centralised, which I think it needs to be kind of taken out of the unions, because it is farcical now that you would actually basically make up crap to get a ban off.
What we should do, or what we were saying before this, is it should be, you should centralise the citing process. So the RFU cited him and got to manage this whole hearing. It should be World Rugby. It has to be independent. So the RFU are getting to decide whether or not the England captain plays for the Six Nations. I mean, you can't, that's not fair. It shouldn't be, and if the same thing happened and it was the RFU, they shouldn't be in charge whether or not Johnny Sexton. It should be completely, it's centralised, and World Rugby should manage that.
You would think so, but you should also think that the unions should have the integrity. Like the RFU should have the integrity. They're the ones who are talking, like all these other unions, about how much they care about the player welfare, but they obviously don't. So you would hope that the unions have integrity. But it's very clear that the RFU don't have integrity.
No, it needs to be taken away from them, unfortunately.
And so it's it's awful, really.
Speaking of integrity, and speaking of the RFU, with some big news that came in this morning for us, would have been late last night. Old Eddie is back in work. A bit of a surprise one. I mean, Dave Rennie, I don't think I don't know what his record was. I think he's only won something like 6 or 7.
He's 5
games out of 14 or something.
Am I right?
I think, look, come here. He started really well. He beat South Africa. When he had a couple, he beat New Zealand. Then, when he lost Cooper, that kind of destroyed his whole team. I don't think he should have got sacked personally, but Eddie Jones is back in, and he's in on I don't know how he managed this one. He must have a good agent. He's in on a 5-year contract, so he's going to get 2 World Cups out of it and a line store. Eddie ain't finished yet.
Eddie is like the bad guy character in a sitcom that we love to hate, isn't he? He just you knew something was going to happen. Did we going to think?
Myself and Pat are just sitting there going, I can't wait for the clicks. We're just here going, Eddie Jones is back. We're just waiting, as in we've got a World Cup. We've got potential. You could have England playing Australia in a quarter final of the World Cup next year. That's the way it looks like it might go. So me and Pat are absolutely delighted because we've got so much stuff to write about, and he's a character. You need people like him in the game. Don't you?
I love Eddie Jones. He's one of my favourite coaches out there. And like you said, when he was sacked from England, he wasn't just going to set off into the sunset and not be seen again.
Eddie.
So I think even when he got sacked, everyone was kind of saying, some other union will pick him up. He's going to beat England in the World Cup. It's just going to happen. And how he got in. I don't really agree with the coaches getting sacked. It's kind of like soccer, it's getting a bit that way. Whereas Dave Rennie's just get sacked, and all these other coaches getting sacked, changing coaches. But look, it's brilliant to have Eddie back in the game.
He kind of could have brought him in with Dave Rennie, couldn't he? Because it would have helped Dave Rennie then as well.
Maybe he could have brought him in, but I don't think Eddie would.
He's not that kind of man, isn't he?
You could have put Eddie as a director of rugby in, and Rennie would. You see, I don't know. There's 2 kind of big personalities to be working alongside each other, I think.
Eddie did it in 2007, was it, with South Africa? He came in with Jake White as an assistant, but then that's quite a while ago, 15 years ago, so probably anymore. Eddie was just
I think Eddie's.
Well, we were just saying it before. I think Eddie Jones' World Cup record. So in 2003, he got Australia to the final, right? Yeah. And they lost to Jolly Wiggs drop goal. In 2007, he was part of the South African team that won it. 2015, he beat to Springboks with Japan.
With Japan, then he
and
got
then 2019,
England.
then he got into the final. So like Eddie Jones, that is his competition.
Yeah.
So I mean, Australia, we forget that they still have some serious players. To get the likes of Cooper back in there, if he picks the right squad. I mean, they did it back in 2015 as well. I know he wasn't involved in, but they got to the final. Australia did.
Yeah.
They have the players that they can kind of 12 months before a World Cup get their shit together, basically. So like that, I think that all of a sudden makes them potential contenders now, just because Eddie's in there, because he just knows World Cups.
And is it about 20 years since they won it? Like, it's a long time, 23
Eels
years.
was the last time, wasn't it? 99 was,
Yeah.
was John Eels and stuff the last time they won it. Like,
So like, do you know what? It's exciting, isn't it? Because I'm kind of thinking the same. Like, you want to go into a World Cup, and we've kind of seen all the obviously permutations, right? It's bringing its own excitement. But now you've Eddie Jones, and really from the autumns, right? The return for Dave Rennie wasn't great. They were so inconsistent. But I think Eddie Jones and his personality and his record, I think they could be the winners. Like, it would be again this like fairy tale ending, like 23-year plus.
until they beat Ireland in the final.
Well, yeah, obviously we'll beat them in the final, but even for them to get to a final, you know, within a 7-month block, like we're kind of looking at Steve Borthwick and what he could do with England under such time constraint. You're kind of going, no way is he going to do that. But then you bring Eddie, and you're like, if anyone can do it, Eddie can.
Well, look, we'll see what happens. But it certainly makes things, if the World Cup wasn't already competitive and interesting enough as it is, it makes it even more competitive, even more interesting, and even harder to bloody win, which is not what we want. But that's also what we want as rugby fans, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not as Irish people, but as fans, or like, yeah.
Well, I think he'll match Razzie, won't he, with a bit of drama and a bit of, you know, between Twitter and whatever.
Gives us something to write about for the next 12 months anyway. So
he won't sugarcoat, yeah.
But we'll move on. We're going to move on, kind of stepping away from the rugby over the weekend, and now I'll move on to yourself, Brian. So you're our special guest this week. You're a mindset and performance coach. We have your book here, the book on how to become a pro rugby player. I was saying it beforehand, I wish I had this when I was 16, because I think it's too late for me, unfortunately, to make it as a pro rugby player. I don't think I had although I think I needed a lot more than this book, to be honest with you. But you're from, as you said, you're from Ballina and Mayo, so Caelan Doris territory, as we said, the most famous rugby player to come out of there, I'd say. Is there anyone else? I'm trying to think, is there any other big rugby players came from Mayo?
Gavin Duffy was the one when I was growing up. He was the one who
good player, in fairness.
And then Dave Heffernan as well. I played with
Dave Heffernan's great. Great.
So Hef's in the Ireland squad now. And there's quite a few. Hef and Caelan Doris, two lads from Ballina.
Not bad.
Nice.
But look here, so you were in the Leinster underage setup when you were up, and you were involved with Van der Fleer and Conan and the boys, some of the big boys.
Yeah, so I played underage, say under 18 with Leinster. I was in school there in Rossgrey, and I was actually involved in the Connacht system, but I was dropped when I was 16. So then I was playing in Leinster, went there, and then after that I went back to Connacht, and then was lucky enough to captain the 20s, a team with Robbie Henshaw, Jack Carty, Kieran Marmy, and a few of those boys. So it's kind of like a golden age of that underage Connacht system. There's just lots of good players coming together. So yeah, spent 2 years in Leinster, then back to Connacht for a few and played a bit of Eagles, and then was up living in Dublin, so I played with Lansdowne, the AIL.
You won a couple of titles with them, didn't you?
Yeah, 2013, 2015.
Not
won
bad.
the AIL. So yeah, once again was lucky to be in just a really good team. Like a lot of those guys are now playing with the different provinces. Like you mentioned earlier, Peter Dooley, Tyg Byrne, you mentioned he was with us, and then you've Tom Daly, Tom Farrell, and yeah, just really, really good team. So that was a lot of fun those years.
Geez, some big names. Fair play.
Yeah. I managed to slot in. I was good at calling lineouts, and so I could just call lineouts, and all these other lads would do all the
Brian,
work.
right?
They would do all this brilliant stuff, and I'd be able to win the lineout and then just slot in and just.
It's probably one of the most important set pieces, if not the most important set piece in rugby. I mean, there's some pro guys out there that still can't call lineouts. Like sometimes it lets us down if your lineout caller isn't on the pitch. It makes a huge difference. So it's a good trick to have up your sleeve. But what was the fork in the road kind of moment for you? Was it injuries where you stepped away and moved into the mindset and coaching?
I mentioned there Lansdowne. I was 23 when I left Lansdowne. I went to the States on a rugby scholarship to play and coach. Okay. And after 6 months there, I got a very bad shoulder injury.
Oh, God.
And I was waiting for a surgery. It took 4 or 5 months. But then after the surgery, I was rehabbing and I kind of relapsed. And during that time, I got quite depressed and was really down, and this took about 18 months to get the shoulder right. I had to then go and get more cortisol injections, and it got to a point where I couldn't move my arm. Jeez. So I got frozen shoulder, then I couldn't move my arm. It was like very debilitating. I couldn't work out, I couldn't do anything, and I just went into a really dark place. And it was at that time I was 25. I just essentially want to feel happy again. Like, I was just so depressed that I started reading into psychology, philosophy, mindfulness, spirituality, all this stuff, because I had been this rugby player who was ambitious and was so excited about everything I was doing, and then all of a sudden I couldn't see any bright in any day, and I was just like nearly like an invalid, and I was just in a bad place. So that's when I started reading into all this stuff, and I wasn't even thinking about playing rugby again. I was just thinking about being happy again, essentially. And I got the shoulder right. I went, got all these, as I said, I got the surgery, didn't work out, got these cortisol injections, got back playing, and I just went back playing for the fun of it. Moved to Vancouver, was living in Canada, and was just like, I love playing rugby, so I was like, I'll go back playing. And then all of a sudden, I was just playing the best rugby I've ever played in my life. Now, the standard is lower, don't get me wrong, but I was just like, everything was just happening for me. Everything was so easy. I was out in the field. It felt like time had slowed down. It felt like I could do nothing wrong. Nice. Everything was just working. And I was like, man. And then I just realized that the stuff I was learning around, as I said, psychology, mindfulness, all this stuff, it was helping me so much on the field. And like my mindset had changed. And then I was playing with BC against Canada. I was in the Canada system, and I was in line to play with Canada this year before I had to stop playing. But I just realised, it was like we were chatting before, I was like, I wish I learned this when I was younger. Yeah. And I had that kind of aha moment, or, first I got a little bit frustrated. I was like, if only I knew all this stuff when I was 16, 18, like, how different it all would have been. But then, I was just grateful to be playing and enjoying and just having fun and just, loving life again. But then, I have a younger brother who's playing, and I was just chatting to different people, and I just realised that, like, young players need this. Like,
100%.
When I was younger, like, nerves get the better of you, and then you get anxious. You make a mistake during a game, and then you're thinking, I don't want the ball for the rest of the game, and you hide away because you're afraid of making another mistake. You get in your head about things. You're on the field, you're thinking, what will the coach think? Oh, will I get dropped? Am I going to play well today? You're just worrying about all this stuff. And so, it was, as I said, that was 25, it was kind of 27, 28, 29 when I just realised it all. And so I just decided I have to help younger players. And then, so I started my Instagram at Off-Field Rugby, putting out content there, started the Off-Field Rugby pod pretty quickly after that, where I just chat to players about their experiences and coaches about, how they found things, what worked well, what didn't. And then one day I was working with a player one-on-one, and I had my books behind me, just whatever different books. Yeah. And he said to me, he's like, oh, what book would you recommend that I read, Brian, for my rugby? And I was kind of thinking,
there isn't one.
I was kind of like, there's a lot, I love the Power Now, all these different books. And I was like, and I was like, let me get back to you. And so anyway, and then I had been just writing out all these notes for the Instagram, the different stuff and the coaching I was doing with players. And I just realised then, I was like, I've probably got kind of 3 or 4 chapters here, because I'd write out pre-match nerves and just write a load of stuff. I'd write out, these different headings. And I just said, there's a few chapters. And I just said, righto, I'll write the book.
If you were trying to tell a kid, the reason to pick this up, what would be 2 or 3 things you take out of that book, kind of like that are key areas that they can learn from?
Yeah, so the first thing is I start off with helping players overcome limiting beliefs. So if when I work with players and I say, what's your goal? What would you like to achieve in the game? They say, oh, I'd like to do this. And then I say to them, if you couldn't fail, if failure was not an option and you were going to succeed no matter what would you like to achieve? Oh, well, if that's the case, I'd like to achieve this. Do you get me?
So why you're putting a ceiling on yourself before it even begins?
Your fear of failure and your limiting beliefs are what are making you aim at this when you really want to achieve this, but you don't even try. Yeah. So that's the first thing I help players with in the book. And then also different things like pre-match nerves is a huge one. Yeah. Like players, and I go through all of it there, I don't know how much time we have, but like I just break it down and just like how to channel those nerves to work for you instead of against you. And so like players get in their head, you feel it in your stomach and you get in your head. And so just help players with all that. Also on the field, how to get into the flow state, in the zone, that when it just feels like everything's happening for you and you can do no wrong. And just how you get into that, and when you make a mistake in a game, how to overcome it right away and just keep playing. and all that kind of stuff.
We'll share obviously your Instagram handle when we get the show out, and like for anyone who's listening or watching this, like you absolutely even just need to on a baseline follow your page, because I had a look at it, and the chapter you're referencing I think is chapter 13, where you start with Steph Curry and you're kind of saying I want you to take the nerves and you can actually use them for your advantage. And Steph Curry has said that you know he knows he's ready. So I suppose, how do you tell players to do that? Because I've spoken to teammates where I love the nerves. I love that buzz and that high, and I know I'm ready. Now, that doesn't bode well for the mental side. I was a point guard at basketball. Now, you can only imagine now somebody who's up for a game and mental. Rugby's the same thing, because it's a very hard game. We've said that to kind of force your way into. Basketball's different, soccer, a bit more attacking, whereas rugby, you kind of need to be tactical in a couple of phases. But like, I love basketball, so when I saw that with Steph Curry and even like on your page, it's just, I love your pointer. So the first thing, pick 3 goals you want before your performance, and the first one has to be fun. Now, I'm sure you did the same as I did, and we said this before the show, Brian. I was like, I forgot about fun. For about 20 years of my career, I forgot
Everyone
about
does,
fun.
unfortunately. That's a problem. Like, and as soon as you lose that, that's the reason you got into any sport in the beginning. It's for fun.
Yes. So
it's the whole point of it.
That is. So how do you A, tell players to use the nerves as a tool, and B, how do you change their mindset to be that elite athlete and to have fun?
Yeah. So,
how do you change that?
So the big thing with change your mindset around the nerves is you first need to understand that they're good. So what nerves are is a release of adrenaline. So we have evolved to have a release of adrenaline when we're in a potentially threatful situation. So like when 10,000 years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers, you hear a rustling in the bush. It could be something that kills you. You get a release of adrenaline. It allows you to fight, flight, or freeze. So the freeze is you freeze so the thing doesn't see you. You flight, you run away, so you get away from it. And the fight, you go and fight it. And so now, before we play a rugby match, we get that feeling as well, because it's a potentially threatful situation. So we can fight, which is what you want to use it for. We can flight, and you've probably been there. Whereas you get the nerves like, I don't even want to be here today. I don't want to be here. That's the flight. You want to get out of there. The freeze, you've seen it as well. It's like people freeze on the big occasion because of the nerves. But you want to use it to fight. So the first thing, figuratively, within the laws of the game. But
mention that quick asterisk over that.
No,
he's not telling you to go fighting in matches again.
So the first thing is to understand that. So to understand that when the nerves come, it's adrenaline, which is giving you the energy. What adrenaline does is it gives you energy. It stops you feeling pain. That's why when you're out in a rugby field, you can get hit, and you just keep going. And it gives you more focus. So that's how you can like zone in. So adrenaline is like a drug. It's like a performance enhancing drug. So you really want it. Like
manifest it and use it, basically.
So what you do is you sit down, you breathe, and when you feel that, feel it. Sit there with that feeling and say to yourself, this is good. I want this. And because you want to go into that, you want to walk into the fire. That's why we play rugby. You know what I mean? Before a big game, you want to go into that. And so all those feelings, feel them and breathe through it and understand that that's what you want. And that is what will give you the energy and the fuel. And like I said, it's like a performance-enhancing drug that will help you be the competitor that you are out on the field. So it's not something to say, oh, this isn't good.
I was just going to say, it's a right in saying, like, a lot of people will, like, and I know I wouldn't think, a lot of people will say, in that situation, the question you'll be asking is, how do I get rid of this? That's not the question you should be asking. The question is, how do I use it correctly? How do I take control of it? You can't get rid of it.
Isn't it really? Adrenaline is kind of like the petrol for your car now, is what I'm taking from what you're saying.
Exactly. So it's exactly that. When I was growing up, it's like, how do I get rid of it?
No, you want to use it.
You don't want to get rid of
train
it. You need adrenaline to play rugby. There's no two ways about it. You cannot play rugby without it. So you can think of it like a performance-enhancing drug, because it literally is. And so you sit with it. It's not about getting rid of it. It's about being friends with it.
Yeah.
It's about sitting there and breathing. So when you breathe, you become present. And the other thing is people get in their heads. So by breathing, by focusing on your breath, it allows you to just feel everything that's going on in your body. Ground yourself, feel your feet on the floor, feel the chair underneath you, and feel everything going through your body, and smile. And think about how much you love playing. Like, think about how much you love being out there. So, in the half hour beforehand, you're feeling all this stuff, but smile. Like physically smiling releases hormones in your body, which are positive. So sit there, breathe deeply, smile, and think about how much you love going out onto that field.
Yeah.
And you'll start to get excited.
I know what you mean, yeah. Is there any players you've worked with now over the years that you could say will be a good example of that, and you'll see it based on their performances on the pitch?
Yeah, people have asked this before. So, like, I work with lots of players one-on-one now, and people have said, like, in the past, you know, what players or whatever, but it's hard to know what's going on in someone else's head.
Of course.
You know? But we were chatting off air, Lindsay, and we were both saying that when we were younger, we used to think you had to be, like, riddled and all up in your head and bouncing off walls. And it's funny, when I was younger as well, I used to think I had to look serious.
Big time. I had a rested bitch face mastered.
If the coach came in and didn't see me like this, I wasn't doing it right. And when I was stepping up in levels, I was like, I had to look like I was ready for it and had my head screwed on and this, that, the other. But then...
Not the case.
And roaring.
Come on. Yeah. So look at the example we used before when we had that chat, Damien de Linde, they came out and said, it's Zebo that said it, he goes for a nap before games. Yeah. Damien de Linde is the best 12 in the world and comes out and plays 9 or 10 out of 10 every game. Yeah. He goes for a nap beforehand.
And it was, I saw 1 or 2 players, can't remember offhand, who were chilled before games. Yeah. And then I was like, that's who I am. Like, I'm chilled. Yeah. When I get onto the field, of course, I'm a different person.
Don't force it out of yourself. Just be yourself.
But be yourself. And it's about managing your energy as well. So, like, before, you know, the morning of a game, you don't need to be bouncing off the wall. You don't really want to be bouncing off the walls. You want to be managing your energy throughout it so that when it comes to kickoff, you're peaking, you know? And so then I realized myself, I was like, I like to just have my music in, listen to my music, chill out in the dressing room. If someone else wants to bang their head against the wall, let them. That's what they want to do. But you just find out what works for you. And a way to do that as well is think about games you've played well in. How were you before that game? And so that'll give like clues as to how you should be before games for yourself to get yourself into the right zone. Because a lot of people are, you know, they'd say like, oh, I feel sick before games. I hate the pre-match, but you don't need to hate it.
No, you don't. And do you think it's the responsibility of the athlete, or do you think that, I suppose, your role for this mental side should be brought in from the top down? Because obviously we spoke about Leinster and like, you know, there's interview with the lads and they're just so assured as to the process and the players around them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
they said, how do you be relaxed if you've got a coach shouting at you going, why aren't you pumped up?
100%. So, like, say, for example, like Munster and new lads in a game philosophy, would it be better for you to come in and take that as a collective, or can you pinpoint players that need that extra help with you? Or how does it work for you?
Yeah, so how it works for me, like I've now been around to a few schools in Ireland, clubs in Ireland over the last couple of months or last 2 months since I've been home. You know, I go around and just talk to those players and help educate them. Okay. And so coaches, they can bring in someone from the top. And I think that at the top level, a lot of players and teams have mindset and performance coaches. But the problem is outside the very top level, there's no access to it. So that's why I wrote the book on how you become a pro rugby player, so that people can read this and learn about this. And the same way when you're young, you get a gym program, you know, and you read about, do 4x8 the bench press, and then do this, then do this. And then if you want to go further, you can work with a personal trainer one-on-one. Lots of people do that. Yeah. And the same way I work with players one-on-one. So you can go online or you can get a book on the gym and you can learn about all the body and everything. And so it's the same with the book. Like you can learn about, have more self-awareness, learn about what will work well for you, learn about how you be your best self out in the field, how you overcome self-doubt, how you deal with the nerves, how you deal with all that. And then, some players will want more. And so that's why I work with players one-on-one on Zoom or meet them for a coffee. There's some players in Ireland here, so in Dublin. And then, with teams as well, same thing. So when I was in Vancouver, I was working with a team, like I was there Tuesday, Thursday, and giving talks. And then a lot of the time teams will just bring me in. I'll just go in for a day and just give a presentation and just chat to them about all that, and then talk to them after as well. And so there's a mix of things.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Oh, look, great stuff. I mean, look, before we move on, we're going to have a quick look at the Six Nations team. But before we move on, speaking of working with teams, you're off to New Zealand next month to work with the Crusaders. I mean, you don't get much, doesn't get much bigger than that. How did that come about?
Yeah.
How did that come about? And how exciting is that? Like, and over to, I would say, probably up there, one of the best teams in the world, up there with Leinster, with probably one of the best coaches in the world in Scott Robertson. I mean, you gotta be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm buzzing for it. So I head off Feb 6th. I get on the flight. So yeah, really exciting. And I
How have you been there?
So I was, as I said, I was in Vancouver for the last 4.5 years, and I was staying in Vancouver because I was eligible to play with Canada in May of 23.
Right.
And I was in the Canada West team and all that. But then I had to stop playing with concussion, and I was coaching. I've been coaching for the last 6-7 years on the grass.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I was coaching the BC under-18 boys, and the Crusaders manager, Shane Fletcher, was over in North America for a few unions brought him over. He was coaching, kind of doing coach development.
Right.
And so myself and him were coaching on the grass for 3-4 days. I was talking to him about the work I do with the mental side of the game, helping players with the mental side of the game. I was talking to him about the book. The book wasn't out yet, but I was talking about all that, and I had him on the off-field rugby pod. And so after 3 days, he said to me, he was like, would you think about coming over for the year? Would you come over and come in with us for the season next year? And I was just like, yes, I would think about that. Yeah, I would. And so he gave me his card and he's like, yeah. And so 2 days later, I said I'd leave it a day. And then
don't look too eager.
I'd leave it a day, and then 2 days later,
play cool,
like, hey,
Brian, play cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at a visa now, and so we just so that's how it went from there. And yeah, I suppose, I don't know, I think I'm one of these people, I think everything happens for a reason, everything in life. And so, like, while I played a lot and, you know, that was always my dream, and then coaching happened, and then I had to stop playing, and, you know, I never dreamt of playing with Canada growing up, don't get me wrong. I was very proud to get to play underage for Connacht, underage for Ireland. Those are the two teams I supported, but playing for Canada was my next goal. I was like, I'm going to do that, whatever. But then that just kind of stopped abruptly. I just got a shoulder.
Take it out of your hands. Like,
exactly.
There's nothing you can do there. You just got to move on.
Then I had already been doing this work on the mental side of the game, and I love it. So while the playing was taken away, then I just went all in on the coaching. And then 3-4 months later, you know, I was on the grass coaching, and then the Crusaders manager came over and was working with me for a few days, and then that happened. So, you know, I think as well, when you're following, I believe that when you're following your passion, when you're all in on your dreams, like you'll see with sport, like what you've achieved. And I just think when you go after it, go full hog after it, things happen.
It does.
Yeah, and I have to say it's fascinating, and you're like a lovely guy, just even briefly chatting before you come on, like, and I'm excited for you, and I think it's lovely that you've come up through the ranks and your experience in the setbacks, and and then reassessing your goals, and now you're into coaching and your mindset, so they all link in as the full package. I think I've worked with some people who have, when they have that different depth of knowledge as a player and be able to transfer it, you know, it's nice, and it's lovely now that you're getting to work with the Crusaders, and now again set, I'm sure, new challenges and new goals, and introduced to different psyches and a different style of rugby and a different culture and a new move. And
best of luck with it. Enjoy the flight over. I haven't been there since I was there in 2017 for the Lions tour. And my God, it's a tough old flight. So that's probably going to be the worst part, is getting over there.
Yeah.
Plenty of whiskey, maybe a couple of sleeping tablets on the way over.
A couple of weddings next year. People, like my cousin and friends are getting married, and they're like, oh, the wedding. I'm like, it takes 31 hours to get there. I was looking at my flights, like 31 hours to get there, and the price of flights. And I'm like, it's not just nipping over and back from the UK or anything, because it's the other side of the world. But I don't know how often I'll be coming back.
Christchurch is down the south island, isn't it?
Island,
down the scenic part, that's where all the Lord of the Rings stuff was filmed.
Yeah.
I went over, I never got to go down to the South Island, I was only in the North Island, and I was like, when I go back I have to go there, because that's all the scenic stuff is. So best of luck down there, enjoy it. I'm sure it'll be a hell of an experience down at Super Rugby
season. They're getting a great man to join their side.
Tell Scott we said well, and tell him if he wants to come over and work over here at some stage.
And don't forget us, Brian. I keep you making famous and be like, oh yeah, I was on that podcast once.
But we'll take a quick look at the Six Nations squad. We haven't got too much time left. We've kind of covered it already throughout the show, and we covered it last week. But I suppose my thing is, I think I'd like to see Mike Haley in there. Is there anyone, based on after what you saw the weekend, anyone either, I'll go start with you, Lindsay, anyone you really want to see there that your mind has changed since the Champions Cup round there the weekend?
all right, I'm going to put my neck on the line with this fella, but I don't think he's going to get in a setup. But I think we need to see him like a Caelan Prendergast. I think we need to see Jamie Osborne in.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think one fella I'm going to also stick my neck on the line to another Leinster man who might be in jeopardy of not making the squad if everyone is fit. I'm not sure where Jordan Lammer is going to fit in as a winger in this Six Nations.
That's 2 weeks in a row. We'll have to give him a heart attack now. He's gone again.
Don't get me wrong. He's playing back well himself, but I'm kind of think, right, obviously James is always gone, but if everyone's fully fit and we've all our wingers and we've Robert Balakoon and obviously we've said Keith Earls. Now I'd love to see his response.
I hope Keith Earls gets in there, lads, and gets his extra, 98 caps or something. He's on, like, there's a man that deserves to get a century of caps. It's Keith bloody Earls, and I know, like, you don't want to give him pity caps. I still think he's good enough to be there. So I really hope either now or the World Cup before he goes, give him those bloody 2 caps.
I know, but sure, like Jimmy O'Brien had another cracking game on the wing. Do you know what I mean? So I just think we've a lot of wingers, we've a lot of players who can play. Like Jordan now is back to his best, but we've kind of ruled him out of fullback, so he's now just an out and out winger. Whereas you have other lads who can kind of play as utility, like Jimmy was in slot and centre, wing, fullback. So they're probably 2 guys I'd like to see in, and I'd like to see John Porch get nationalised and him in as well. It'd be another tradition, wouldn't he?
Is there anyone you spotted there now, like in the Connacht game or the Munster game, you're like, you know what, I'd love to see him give him a shot?
So all the people who are in, you mentioned Caelan Prendergast. I think he has to stay in there. He was in the New Zealand tour, obviously, but I think someone we were talking about Ian Henderson earlier in second rows, but I think Niall Murray from Connacht has been unreal, and like, he took apart the Leinster line-out there a couple of weeks ago.
He did a great
job. And he's been incredible for the last year, 18 months. And so while there's a lot of really good players in the second row, I think he's someone who could definitely get a look in.
As well, as you said, we'd like to see maybe give Mac a shot at 15 in one of the games for Ireland. Be an interesting one to see that, because he was so good there. I said, I know it was Brive, but would be nice to see him in there with an Irish.
Well, he needs to get his. I think positionally, I'd like to see him at international level, see how he covers, because Hugo Keenan, he did well against.
Hugo's
Ulster.
always going to start, right? Hugo is our best fullback, but it's just we keep saying, you can't rely on having one player in a position. It's especially in the World Cup. If he gets injured, if he gets banned, if anything happens, we're in trouble.
Another one like Robbie Henshaw's out injured. I think he'll be back pretty soon. But Ringrose 13 is obviously world class. But another one I think is Tom Farrell, who's been playing really well.
We said that last week, on the show. Tom Farrell, he's a guy you mentioned. Like, so there's a lot of centres there as well. It's a tough one to break into.
There's like you've Stuart McCluskey, Jamie Osborne at 12. There's a lot of 12s, and Bundyaki more of a 12. But it's he's someone who's there.
He's playing really well, isn't he? He's some of his tries, and he's getting gain line in his running lines. But I suppose what we said is he's been around a long time and has that ship sailed from. But I think, look, what's the harm in bringing lads in? And like, kind of bit like we said, what Leinster rotating 3 squads, at least you get a look at everyone. Lads get chances to play wherever they get a chance in the ball, and they actually get time to play rather than 2 teams or whatever way and people are just in and out and you're left on a sideline. We've all kind of been there, and you're like, when am I going to get my opportunity to play? Then your confidence knocks. So, I think some good names. But like the conundrum we have here, we're just listing off players and players and players.
It's a good complaint.
Probably 50 players that could and would do a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't have that in the last World Cup, and the World Cup before that we didn't have this depth at all. Like, so it's good to see. But fortunately, we're almost out of time. We have time for one more thing, and Pat, we're going to start the show at Munster and we're going to finish the show at Munster, just the way I like
Pat,
it.
how much money did he give you? How much?
I tell you, it's time now for our never stop competing moment of the week. We're going to give it to Sean Dagbo. You recognise the name. He is the brother of Munster's Edwin. He scored a 70-metre try for UCC in the AIL Division 1B. He's only 19 years old. So we can have the 2 brothers in, absolutely running riot for Munster. So another good Munster player coming up that we need. So congratulations, Sean. Hope to see you in a red jersey very soon. But unfortunately, lads, I know we could sit here chatting about mindset and Ireland and rugby, Crusaders, everything all day, but we don't have any time left. We're going to have to leave it at that. Absolutely. Thanks for coming in today. I know you had to get up very early this morning and come all the way over from Mayo, and with our lovely train system in Ireland, it takes about 9 hours because you've got to go up and down. At least for me in Limerick, it's 2 hours up the road. But thanks for coming on, Brian. Hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers, Jason and Lindsay.
You're
And
a
Pat.
gentleman.
Cheers. Thanks very much for having me on.
And Lindsay.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, as
Absolutely.
always, Lindsay, we love having you here, and we'll have you back.
I know, I love being here.
You're going to have to look at it. There'll be someone prettier in the seat now next week because Greg will be back. Like, so
Come here, I won't have that. Both of my brothers are as handsome as the other. So listen.
Oh, look, that's all we have time for. So thanks again to our sponsors, Bank of Ireland, proud supporters of the 4 Irish provinces. Catch you next week, guys.
Joe presents House of Rugby, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.